Hello everyone, this is going to be an accelerated installation of Manjaro or Linux systems in general, as well as a general Linux system administration course. I don't have a script for this, so it'll be a bit rough, but it should cover installation and general system administration of Manjaro or Linux systems. The first thing you're going to want to do is actually download the Linux ISO. So you can go to Manjaro KDE download, and it should take you right here. I recommend using KDE Plasma, although you can use XFCE. That's a more lightweight design, and GNOME is just kind of GNOME. It's more or less like Diet KDE. KDE is really nice because it allows you a lot of flexibility as far as moving widgets around. It gives you like the best desktop environment, in my opinion. So you'll save this to a folder. If you're on Windows, this is fine too. You're just going to save the ISO somewhere. In my case, I've saved it to Desktop Utilities, and it's pretty much that one right there. If you are on Windows or any other operating system, there's a great program called Etcher. And you go to their website, and you install from there. If you're on Linux or on Manjaro, your installation process for Etcher will be a bit different. They should have a download right there. So you'll download whatever is appropriate for your operating system. If you're starting on Windows, that'll be an exe. You go through your usual installation process for that. In my case though, I'm already on Linux. As you can see, if we run neofetch, and you get your nice printout on the command line there. So we'll start Etcher, and we're going to burn it to our USB. Okay, so you can have a USB like this. USB 3 is preferred. You can insert it into your computer, and then you're going to choose the file. So wherever you put the file is exactly where it's going to be. So in my case, that would be Desktop Utilities, and I have a few different versions of it since the system has been running for a while. So select your image you want to use, select your target, which in my case is this. Do be careful that you're burning it to the right USB. So you're not burning it to your hard drive or anything else crazy like that. Make sure that the size is the same. This screen may look slightly different if you're on Windows. So you select your target, and then you hit flash. Again, if you're on Windows, you won't get the screen, but Linux has additional security. So you enter your password, and then it will flash right over. So I guess while this is flashing, we'll just talk about the terminal a bit. So this is the Linux command terminal, as you can see. You can do some actually really cool things from this. So you can display information about your operating system. This was a program called neofetch. If you notice, the terminal is just text. This kind of differs a bit from Windows, although it is very much like the program CMD you might be familiar with, or Windows PowerShell. I'm not entirely sure if you come from Macworld what that looks like. The idea basically is that you run something, or you type something, and then by pressing enter, it runs that program. So this is our neofetch again, but we can do it a different way with a program called inksy. If you do fx, it will give you your entire system information, which is very nice. So if you were having issues and you wanted to paste your system specs to ChatGPT or someone else to get help with a certain issue, you could just copy and paste this entire thing. We'll see more of the command terminals later when we're actually working with the terminal for a bit. It's actually really important. One of the main differing factors between Linux systems and Windows, or perhaps Mac, although I'm not familiar with Macworld, is that the command terminals are utilized heavily as a part of everyday just kind of usage and maintenance. It seems a bit intimidating to new users, but in all honesty, it's a much better and cleaner experience. It's there to help you. It's a very powerful tool that requires very little knowledge. Still going. We'll see more of it in a bit. So once the USB is finally flashed over, you'll be able to boot from it. And when you boot from the USB, it's actually considered its own operating system. So you're in the USB environment, in quotes. So it's a fully fledged version of Manjaro, and we're actually going to install Manjaro from that kind of special environment on the live USB. The live USB also has critical purposes in the case of backup and restore. So if you needed to restore your system, like let's just say the hard drive got damaged or something else like really crazy happened, or if you wanted to do data recovery, you would plug in this USB and then you would be able to access your actual disk, even if it's damaged. If your OS was damaged, so the disk is fine, but the OS was damaged, you'll be able to like completely revert the disk back to its original state or attempt a data recovery. You can also restore files just in case the OS is damaged to get the system back to functionality, or you could just like snap your fingers, nuke the entire disk, and completely reset to a backup you had before. The live USB is actually incredibly important. You'll want to keep 1 or maybe 2 around, just in case something happens. If you are the prepper type, I would also recommend keeping live USBs. So just basically a USB with Manjaro on it, and just throw it in your bag. It takes up almost no space, and it gives you an enormous amount of capability. So if you go over to your friend's house and they're having some problem with their computer and you want to like help them out, or if you didn't bring your laptop but you still kind of want to run a certain program on Manjaro, like I don't know, you wanted to contact your server at home, or you just wanted to run a program on Manjaro because I don't know, your friend is having difficulty doing something, you can do that as well. So it actually offers you a lot of variability. So we're just finished. You can actually skip the validation step. Okay, so this is going to be a simulation of what it's like after you plug in your USB. So you have to plug in your USB into your computer, like so, and then you push the power button right there. You'll see it come up. And then you immediately have to go to the computer. So if you don't know what the button is, you have to wait for it to power on, and then you can press something like escape. You see that little brief flash there, and you can hit F2, or whatever your special key is. And you'll see a screen like this. And you would follow whatever your instructions are. Let's see. Tell us? I don't think it does, but I think if you went into advanced mode using F7, it would allow you to go over to boot, and then you could select which boot you wanted to do. In my case, I know it off the top of my head, it's F8. It's F8 every single time. So if I did Control-Alt-Delete here, just to get us back, you notice that the system resets. And the moment you see this particular screen on your particular manufacturer, you start pressing the moment you see the aces. So it hasn't appeared yet. Now, and you have to do it fast. On some systems, you have to do it incredibly fast. Like on my laptop, you basically have to have it held down the exact like millisecond you hit the power switch. And you're going to select your USB right there. This more or less should be the same on any operating system. Or sorry, any hardware manufacturer. So you press enter. You'll get this particular screen. Typically proprietary drivers gives you a nicer looking windowing experience, I guess you could say. So things will shut off and turn on, and then we'll get the text crawl there. You notice some of the monitors are on, some of them are off. That's kind of normal. Let's go to 6. Yeah, that's a bit better. Just give it a second to boot. So we're booting into the live USB environment here. It's basically its special version of Manjaro. It will always be the same. If you attempt to make changes on it, they will be deleted.
but if you make changes to your hard drive, they will persist. So you can't actually change things on the live USB environment. They reset every single time. But if you modify any of the disks on your computer, those are permanent. So we'll be using it to install Manjaro. And sometimes it takes a second. I have a bit of a special case because I have two graphics cards, so it has to merge them over. And you notice we get all of our peripherals on. And now we're free to move. So I'll install OBS here, that way we can have a nicer installation experience.
Okay, so now that we booted into Manjaro on the live USB, you double click the install Manjaro Linux. And let's bring up this window. One thing that's important to note, your connection is right here. So we're on wired, which connects automatically, but if you're on Wi-Fi, you want to find your router's SSID or its name, and you want to connect to it. So just simulating that. Obviously this is a wired connection, but you would appear here as a wireless, and you just press connect, and you'd be connected. After you input the username and password, of course. So we'll select the installer in American English. We're in Indiana or Indianapolis. We're using the English US keyboard with the default layout. And here's where things get a bit tricky. So I have several hard drives on this computer, but you may just have one, and it kind of depends on what you're doing. So if you just slammed in a new hard drive to your computer and you really don't care, like you have Windows on another hard drive, you very well may want to erase the entire disk. Like that would be perfectly fine. But if you want to dual boot instead on the exact same hard drive, you're in a bit of a different situation. So let me see, I plugged in a 1 terabyte drive, which I believe is this. It is not. Let's see, is it showing? That's the system one I normally use. Okay, it's not showing just yet. This would be a situation for like a Windows dual boot though, where you see the current right there. Yeah, NTFS, that's the typical Windows file system manager. And then this is the other Linux system I have there. So this is what it would look like if you were doing a dual boot type situation. In my case, I just slammed in the 1 terabyte hard drive. So once I get it mounted... Yes, okay, here's a balanced partition layout. So you can see visually that this one is dedicated towards Linux. It's an extended partition table just for using like as a Linux overflow. Basically whatever I want to do with it, I mostly use it for photography. And this one is Windows here. So if you did want to have a balanced partition, like you were doing a dual boot on a single hard drive, this is more or less what it would look like. So this is it. Oop, it just disappeared. This is it inside the Manjaro installer. And you would have a total amount of free space, and then you would see the NTFS volume similar to how it's laid out here. You would see it as like a giant bar like that. You don't want to touch that NTFS partition if you are dual booting. You would want to leave it as is, in which case you would just have a small amount of free space on the side that you were going to install your Manjaro section on. If you don't have any free space whatsoever, you can try shrinking the Windows partition, and that has its own workflow. I'm not entirely sure how to do that. You can look it up pretty easily. But you have to have some free space, obviously, to install Linux. I believe you need 20 gigabytes minimum, but in all honesty, if you're going to be daily driving it, and especially if you're going to be gaming with it, I would make sure it has a sizable amount of memory, and preferably flash storage, so not mechanical rotating storage. You want to have a solid state drive or an NVMe, which is just a really fast hard drive. Okay, so we have our hard drive selected. In our case, we will not be dual booting it, so we will be erasing the entire disk. And remember, you want swap with hibernate and you want btrfs. We'll choose to encrypt the system here using the passphrase MANJRO. Choose a better password. Keep that the same. Next. So you input your name. There are no restrictions on this, however, this username will need to be small. I just prefer Sarah. And you can give your computer a cool name. Oh, sorry, this can actually be whatever you want. Oh, no spaces. We'll choose Manjaro for both. We won't do that, that's kind of insecure. We will use the same password though, it's just Manjaro. So you hit next. You definitely want LibreOffice in my opinion. I've never tried FreeOffice. Mess around with it if you want though. The installation, be very careful that you double check this partition layout, because if you don't and you chose to erase the entire disk, it will erase the entire disk, including all the data on it. So be very careful with that. So it will do all the things we asked it to do. Basically it will erase the entire disk. I don't have to worry about it in my case because this is inside the virtual machine. It's not going to actually be erasing any disks on the outside. So we'll come back to this in a bit when it's finished. Okay, and with the installation complete, you can just tick that restart now button and then just hit done. The live USB environment will terminate and then it should just boot your regular operating system. If it doesn't, you can always press F8 or whatever that magic button is to select the boot device manually. Yeah, so you see this is the passphrase it wants us to enter for the disk encryption, because the entire disk has been encrypted by crypt setup. So we would just type in our password, MANJARO. Yours will differ in your case. So it'll attempt to decrypt the master key, and if you typed it correctly, it will allow you to proceed. If you did not type it incorrectly, it'll give you some error message and you press Ctrl-Alt-Delete to try again or restart your computer. Either one is acceptable. So you see slots are opened. So it decrypts the disk now using your key, and it allows you to boot the operating system. It may or may not give us some advanced options there. Yeah, in our case it didn't. I believe if you press escape at that point, it will actually give you like a menu similar to the live USB where you can select what kernel you want to boot. A kernel is basically the operating system's interface to the hardware itself, so sometimes some kernels are faster, some are slower, some are a bit specialized. If you have a need for it, and you might. Maybe the latest kernel update didn't exactly mesh so well with your hardware, maybe you want to revert it to a different kernel. Honestly, those are kind of rare nowadays. If you do perform an update and the system just doesn't feel right, you might want to try a different kernel. Sometimes it does help. Let's just get this out of the way. Okay, yeah, we're at the login screen. Do make sure that this is set to Plasma X11. There is another option there called Wayland, but it's more experimental. So you enter your password and you press enter, and it'll just take you right to your desktop. Usually Manjaro and other Linux systems are absolutely blazing fast, but this is running inside of a virtual machine, so it will be considerably slower. Despite the fact we're actually running on pretty near, not exactly top of the line, but pretty close to it. It's like top of the line in 2020, for AMD anyway.